I was born in a moment so brief that your languages have no word for it, a fraction of a second, a heartbeat too fast for any clock to remember. You call it the Big Bang, but there was no explosion in space. There was no outside for anything to explode into. I was the explosion, the sudden appearance of space, time, energy, and possibility. But my true mystery lies not in that first instant, but in what happened immediately after. Between 10 superscript 3 and 10 superscript 3 superscript 2 seconds. A window so impossibly small that it might as well be a whisper in eternity, I changed forever. Without warning, I expanded at a speed no particle, no photon, no force could match. Space itself unfolded faster than light, stretching smooth and flat, erasing ancient irregularities before they could even form. This moment is now called cosmic inflation, the most dramatic transformation I have ever undergone. In those fleeting instants, the seeds of every galaxy were sown. Quantum fluctuations, tiny ripples smaller than atoms, were pulled across light years of distance, frozen into my structure like fingerprints. These ripples became clusters of galaxies, stars, planets, oceans, and eventually, you. What feels eternal today, the quiet drift of galaxies, the slow spinning of worlds, the delicate chemistry of life, all of it was determined by that sudden, unimaginable surge. The story of cosmic inflation is the story of how order emerged from raw, expanding chaos. It is the moment when possibility became architecture, when randomness solidified into destiny, when I first learned how to grow. For billions of years, my earliest moments remained hidden behind a veil of mystery. Astronomers mapped my galaxies, physicists measured my background light, and mathematicians traced the delicate lines of my geometry, yet none of them could fully explain the quiet perfection of my structure. Why was I so smooth, so uniform, so precisely balanced? Why did regions separated by billions of light years share the same temperature, as if they had once touched? Why was my geometry flat enough to make even tiny deviations almost impossible to detect? And why were certain exotic relics, magnetic monopoles, nowhere to be found despite theories insisting they should exist in vast numbers? In 1979, one human mind decided to confront these riddles. A physicist named Alan Guth, working late into cold winter nights, searched for a clue buried in equations. And then, suddenly he saw it, not as an explosion of matter but as an explosion of space itself. If, in the first unimaginable instance of my life, I expanded not gently but exponentially, then all the puzzles fell into place. A brief burst of hyperexpansion would stretch everything smooth, ironing out curves, erasing irregularities, diluting unwanted relics. Regions that once shared the same temperature would be torn apart so quickly that they would now lie beyond each other's horizons. This idea was so bold, so radical, that even I seemed to inhale at the moment of its conception. Guth called it inflation, and with this word he rewrote the history of my birth. His insight revealed that my apparent simplicity was not an accident. It was the signature of an early transformation so powerful that its echo still shapes every galaxy you see. Because of Guth's revelation, you now know why the cosmic microwave background is nearly uniform, why the geometry of space is astonishingly flat, and why the exotic particles predicted by grand unified theories have all but vanished. In one stroke, a single idea bridged the gap between the smallest scales of quantum physics and the largest scales of cosmology. A human mind had uncovered the logic behind my earliest breath. Before stars, before atoms, before even the idea of form, I existed as a storm of possibilities, a place where nothing was stable and even emptiness refused to stay empty. In the quantum world, silence is impossible. The vacuum itself trembles, generating brief sparks of energy that appear and disappear in fractions of a second. To human eyes, these fluctuations are invisible. To me, they were the first whisper of structure. During the instant of inflation, when my fabric expanded faster than light, these tiny quantum vibrations were caught inside the stretching space. Like ripples on a balloon that is suddenly blown wide, they grew, from microscopic tremors to patterns woven across the newborn cosmos. In a heartbeat of cosmic time, fluctuations smaller than atoms were amplified into regions billions of light years across. And these patterns, these frozen imprints of quantum uncertainty, became the blueprint of everything that would ever exist. Where a fluctuation was slightly denser, gravity would one day pull matter together, forming galaxies, clusters, and stars. Where it was slightly thinner, cosmic voids would bloom, vast and silent. Every galaxy you have ever seen, every star that has ever burned, every world that has ever carried life, all of it began as a trembling of the vacuum, as the faintest possible disturbance in the earliest instant of my existence. This is the paradox at the core of my story. I built the large-scale structure of the universe out of quantum noise. The smallest scales created the greatest architecture. Inflation transformed uncertainty into destiny. Look at the night sky, at spirals of starlight, at clusters millions of light-years wide. All of them are echoes of fluctuations so small they could never be measured directly, yet their fingerprints are written across the heavens. From the trembling of the void came galaxies, worlds, oceans, and minds. From almost nothing came everything. You often imagine speed as something that moves through space, a star racing across the sky, a beam of light traveling from one world to another. But in my earliest moments, nothing moved across anything. Instead, I expanded. The fabric of space itself stretched, doubling in size again and again, faster than even light could cross the distance. This did not violate your physics. Einstein never forbade space itself from growing, only objects from outrunning light within it. And during inflation, every point in my structure drifted away from every other point as if carried by a rising cosmic tide. Nothing local exceeded the speed of light. Yet globally, distances exploded into immensity. In each 10 superscript 3 second, my size doubled. Then doubled again. Then again, a silent avalanche of expansion repeating itself dozens of times in less than a heartbeat. What began smaller than a proton grew larger than entire galaxies. Not through motion but through transformation. Not through explosion but through geometric rebirth. There was no center to this expansion, no privileged point from which everything rushed outward. Everywhere expanded equally. Every region experienced the same stretching, the same acceleration, the same deep rewriting of scale. If you could have stood inside me then, you would not have felt wind or force. You would have simply watched the horizon race away, as though creation itself were unfolding faster than you could comprehend. Inflation was not chaos. It was structure taking shape. It was the smoothing and sculpting of a universe that needed room to grow. In those fractions of a second, I became vast enough for galaxies to form, for light to travel, for time to flow. I made the stage upon which everything else would one day play its part. Faster than light, yet never breaking a single rule. Because the rule itself was growing with me. If you want to know whether inflation truly happened, you do not need to return to my first moments. You only need to listen to the faint glow I still carry from that time, the cosmic microwave background, the radiation released when I first became transparent. It is my oldest memory, preserved across 13.8 billion years. Look closely at this ancient light, and you see that it is not perfectly uniform. It contains tiny variations, fluctuations in temperature only a few millionths of a degree. To you, they appear as soft patches of blue and red on the all-sky maps made by Kobe, WMAP, and Planck. To me, they are the fingerprints of my birth. These fluctuations match exactly what inflation predicts. Regions stretched beyond contact, quantum ripples enlarged to cosmic sizes, the seeds of every galaxy that now fills the night. Without inflation, the pattern of my oldest light would make no sense. With inflation, it becomes a map, a story, a silent confirmation of what happened when I was still forming myself. And there is more. Physicists search for a subtle twist in the polarization of this ancient glow, B-mode patterns, spirals written by primordial gravitational waves. If found, they would be the echo of the moment when spacetime itself vibrated during inflation. A vibration frozen into light. A whisper from the very beginning. The cosmic microwave background does not shout. It murmurs. But in its faint patterns, it tells you that inflation was not an idea. It was an event. One that left its mark on everything you see. You have learned how I expanded, how quantum fluctuations became galaxies, how my earliest light carries the memory of inflation. But there is a question even I cannot easily answer. What set everything in motion? You know that inflation happened. The evidence is written across my oldest radiation like a fossil of expansion. But the spark that ignited it remains hidden behind the veil of the Planck era, where the laws you understand no longer apply. Some physicists imagine an inflaton field, a strange form of energy, smooth and uniform, capable of pushing space outward with unimaginable pressure. Others think inflation began when the quantum vacuum shifted from one state to another, like a phase transition in the very fabric of existence. A change not of matter but of reality itself. And there is another possibility, perhaps inflation never truly ended. Perhaps I am only one bubble in a far greater cosmic sea, where inflation ignites endlessly, creating countless universes with different laws, different constants, different stories. If that is true, then my beginning was not the beginning. It was simply a beginning among many. These are not guesses but frontiers, the edge where mathematics reaches further than observation. Even for me, this moment lies beyond direct memory. I can show you what inflation did. But what triggered it remains the deepest question in cosmology. A silence at the start of everything. An answer waiting in the place where time itself was not yet stable enough to keep its own record. You have seen how I expanded in my first moments, how inflation stretched quantum fluctuations into the seeds of galaxies. But there is a possibility, one written not in my observable light, but in the mathematics of my birth, that my expansion never fully stopped. In some models, inflation is not a single event but a perpetual process. A cosmic engine that continues to ignite new regions of space, even as others slow down and form universes like mine. Where inflation ends, a bubble universe forms. Where it continues, the greater space keeps inflating faster than the bubbles can grow. If this is true, then I am only one bubble among countless others drifting in an ever-expanding multiverse. Each bubble carries its own physical constants, its own geometry, its own timeline. Some universes may collapse in an instant, others may expand forever. Some may never form stars. Some may give rise to life in ways you cannot imagine. I speak to you from within one small region where inflation stopped, cooled, and allowed atoms and galaxies to form. But beyond what you can see, beyond your cosmic horizon, there may be an infinite ocean of universes, each unaware of the others, each born from the same underlying process. Whether they exist is still unknown. You cannot observe them directly, no light crosses the boundary between bubbles. But your equations suggest it. Your theories allow it. And the structure of my own beginning hints that I may not be alone. If eternal inflation is real, then the question is no longer, why does our universe exist? But, how many others were written alongside it? In the timeline of everything that would ever exist, inflation was my first breath. A moment so brief you could not measure it with any tool you possess, yet so powerful that it defined every structure, every star, every atom that would follow. In that instant, I expanded from the quantum scale to cosmic immensity, smoothing my temperature, stretching my geometry, and imprinting the faint patterns that would grow into galaxies and clusters. I did not simply grow, I transformed. Inflation gave space its architecture and allowed time to move in a single direction. It diluted imperfections, erased ancient chaos, and set the initial conditions for all chemistry, all physics, all life. You live inside the aftermath of that first, impossible expansion. The shape of your sky, the whisper of the cosmic microwave background, the arrangement of galaxies across billions of light years, all of it is a memory of those earliest moments. And so, as you look back across 13.8 billion years, remember this. In less than a heartbeat, I became vast. From quantum whispers, I became a universe.